What? What the fuck? Crackdown 3. A game that was filled with promise, expectations, and of course, nostalgia. But over the last 5 years, yeah, you heard that right, 5 years of development, Xbox finally has released Crackdown 3, a game filled with over-the-top action, chaos that attacks the senses, and of course, explosions, and more explosions, and wait for it, more explosions. Now, if you throw in some Terry Crews one-liners, you have a pretty solid game that is just plain fun. Even with some of the critics and some non-critics attacking this game, I do have to ask the question, is this game as bad as everyone is making it out to be? Of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and that's all great, but I do question what everyone's talking about when playing this game. So I'm here to give my review of a game that I think has been getting an extremely bad rap. But I do have to admit, I'm a pretty big Crackdown fan. I've been a fan of the franchise since its inception back in 2007, when the game was sold attached to a Halo 3 beta code. Most people did buy the game for Halo 3's beta code, but slowly everyone started to realize that Crackdown was an over-the-top fun game. Fast forward to this generation, and Crackdown 3 has had its troubles with its development, yet the main concern I always had when following this game's development was if this game had the heart of a Crackdown franchise game attached to it. So I have to admit, I was truly worried about this game, especially when they showed the game off the last 2 years. It wasn't because of the destruction that was never promised. I was more worried if this game will have the same feel and spirit that the first Crackdown had. So let's dive into this game and find out if it's a true Crackdown game for Crackdown fans. First up are the graphics, and while I've heard people say this game looks like a last generation title, I have to shake my head in disappointment with that statement, because I found the graphics to be one of the standouts to the game. And maybe it's because I'm a comic book fan and I love the artistic style this game is going for, and the developers have said they are going for a comic book feel. It's what they've been inspired by, because that's where Crackdown has always got its inspiration from. But I have to say, this game really did pop on screen at times, especially when you are jumping around, blowing up bad guys, climbing large buildings, and looking over the massive city in front of you. But I do have to say, the fine detail is lacking, and that's because this game isn't meant for you to stop and smell the concrete pavement you're running around on. This game is always throwing bad guys at you to overwhelm your senses and have you always on the move, shooting over the top powered guns. That's the beauty of this game and where the graphics stand out. Throughout my entire gameplay though, I never experienced a frame drop or felt I was really pushing the engine to the max. No matter what I did to the game, I was always locked at 30 frames per second, which is a nice change of pace compared to some other games. But now let's talk about the sound of the game.
The locations on the map. They'll be a deadly threat until we take them down.
As you can tell, the sound of the game is over the top and quite funny. Be it you hearing your character saying dumb one-liners to bad guys as you completely dominate them, or you hear the agency guy telling you to step up your game because you need more orbs or need to kill more bad guys. Either way, it's a fun time, and I have to say the best sound in the entire game is the orbs. Listening for these and running around the world does add a certain aspect to the game that every true Crackdown fan loves. You'll be running across some buildings and ready for a fight. When you hear that faint sound of an orb, you stop everything you're doing and go collect that enticing green magic dust. But I do have one problem with the sound, and that has to be most of the cutscenes and most of the lines said by your character are very faint and in the background. While you can hear what they're saying, it's still pretty hard to make out at times. And if you have Terry Crews as your main character, this shouldn't be a problem at all in a game like this. Let Terry Crews do what Terry Crews does, which is be over the top and yell over the speakers. That's one of the most disappointing parts of this game. I always had a little bit of a hard time hearing what Terry Crews was saying or what my character was saying because the explosions or the sound or the music would just drown it out. I didn't like that too much. Next up are the controls, which I have to say are the best parts of the game. Now I understand there are games out there that make you feel like a god and are truly fun to play, but to me personally, this game stands above all those in the control factor. Nothing beats the fast-paced movement when you're jumping into the air, locking onto a target, and you use the full breadth of your arsenal on them with such effortless movement. The game has this gratifying feeling when you are able to take out all of your targets with one well-placed rocket or grenade. But the game's not always like that. When you first start the game, you're this scrawny little Terry Crews character that has to build up his strength, agility, explosions, and of course, your guns. And the controls feel a little wonky at first, because you are expecting to jump high and overpower your enemies. But that doesn't happen until you level all those categories up and you start to feel like a true unstoppable powerhouse. And to me, that really made the game all the better, because while it's fun to be this unrelenting force of nature, it would seem very hollow if you just started the game off like that. But as you level up and get stronger, it makes it much more rewarding when you can take out large masses of enemies, because you're just this unstoppable force and a badass in general. But now let's talk about one of the worst aspects of the game, and that has to be the main story. While Crackdown as a franchise has never been about the story, I find it underwhelming all the same. I wouldn't mind a little more depth with the story, especially when you hire someone like Terry Crews, a guy that can give you a pretty cool character to hang your hat on. But instead, you are Terry Crews, who doesn't talk much in the game, who is tasked with taking on 3 of the biggest criminal organizations you have ever seen, who are all led by Terra Nova, who are led by this lady, Elizabeth Neiman, who thinks humanity is destroying planet Earth. So what's the best way to save the world? Well, introduce new chemicals that do harm to humans and the environment. There isn't an emotional connection to the protagonist or the antagonist of the story. It's all very forgettable. I think this is one of the main critiques of the game, and it truly does hold it back from being a pretty decent game. Yet it's hard to complain about this because it's what Crackdown has always been. You're an agent from the agency, and it's your job to rid the city of bad guys. But I can't shake the feeling they should have added story elements to explain this game a little further. Flesh it out, give us a little more detail to expand on the world. And the side content is very straightforward. You destroy bases of operations any way you see fit, usually by blowing up everything. And as you do this, you start to draw the main bad guys out in order for you to kill them. But in order to get to the big bads, you have to go up their huge skyscrapers and go floor by floor and destroy everything that stands in your way. It does get a little repetitive towards the end, but again, the fun controls and the crazy guns make it a fun endeavor. And not to mention, there's all these little recordings you can hack and all these little computers you can hack and these tall towers that you take down that are propaganda for the enemy. All those things tied together give you a lot of things to do in the game. It made me feel like I was playing a Ubisoft game or a Ghost Recon Wildland game. It's just all over the place and there's just too much stuff to do. And you go on the map taking task by task and you taking them out as you work toward the main boss. But to bring all this destruction and organized chaos together, as a Crackdown fan, I have to say this is the best Crackdown in the series by far. It's a game that really does hit the nostalgia factor right on the nose for me. I was instantly transported to being a young kid playing Crackdown for the first time. Except it was just a much better experience and the graphics really stood out, along with the crazy amounts of guns you had. But as a gamer, I understand the criticisms. We have seen what other games have done to push the envelope in gaming and showcase new technology and help us see things we have never seen or imagined before. And those things are great and they're needed to push us forward. But that's not what Crackdown 3 was aiming for. Sometimes a game is going out for out of this world fun and mindless destruction. And I have to say, I loved every second of this chaos. Will this game win awards or be praised for years on end? No, of course not. But it is a fun game and I feel they got a bad rap for being an entertaining slugfest. I have to give this game a 7.9 out of 10 because I enjoyed the game, but I could see some of the flaws. I was at around an 8, but after a little while and after thinking on it and sitting down and just truly taking the game in, I settled on a 7.9, and I think that's a fair assessment for someone who's a true Crackdown fan. Well everyone, that's what I think about this crazy game, and I hope you enjoyed the video, but I want to know what you guys think about this game. Go down below and let's have a discussion. Were the critics right to kill this game? Does it deserve the 60 Metacritic it has? Do you hope to see a Crackdown 4 in the future? Do you expect better for Microsoft and Xbox? Go down below and let me know. And if you liked the video, hit the like button and that subscribe button. It means a lot to me and it helps the channel out immensely. And go follow me on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and interacting with everyone in the community. Thanks for watching everyone. I'm out of here. And remember, enjoy your gaming and bring the damn boom. Later.